How far away are we from World War III? Right now, the world is holding its breath because one wrong move in the Middle East could drag every major power into direct conflict. The Iran war has already lasted 20 days. Israel and the United States have struck Iranian targets deep inside the country. Iran has responded with massive missile barrages and proxy attacks across the region. Oil prices have surged past $114 a barrel. The Strait of Hormuz is effectively paralyzed. And the biggest question hanging over everything is whether Russia or China will cross the line that turns this into a global war. The risk is higher than most people realize. Prediction markets and intelligence assessments currently price the chance of direct great power involvement in the next 30 days at around 18 to 25%. That number may sound low until you remember that even a 20% chance of World War III is the highest it has been since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Could this be the moment the world finally tips over the edge? Let's look at the 3 triggers that analysts say could make it happen. First, sustained closure of the Strait of Hormuz beyond 30 days. 20% of the world's oil and a huge share of LNG flow through that narrow channel every single day. Russia has massive financial interest in high oil prices right now. If Iran keeps the strait blocked and Moscow decides to protect its economic lifeline by sending warships or air support, American and Russian forces would suddenly be facing each other directly in the same waters. That single decision could turn a regional war into a superpower showdown overnight. Second, a direct strike on Russian personnel or assets inside Iran or Syria. American and Israeli intelligence already know Russian advisors are embedded with Iranian units. If one of those sites is hit and Russian soldiers are killed, Moscow would face enormous domestic pressure to respond. A single missile exchange between Russian and American forces would cross the red line both sides have avoided for 80 years. The hotlines would light up, but the risk of miscalculation would be extreme. Third, spillover into the Caucasus or Russia's southern energy corridors. If the fighting spreads north and threatens pipelines or borders that Russia considers vital, the incentive to intervene becomes survival rather than choice. Russia is already stretched thin in Ukraine. Adding a second major front would be incredibly dangerous, yet the Kremlin might calculate that it has no other option. Could this be the chain reaction that pulls in Turkey, NATO, and eventually China? Right now, the markets are pricing Russian direct intervention at roughly 18%. That number jumps to 47% if the Hormuz closure lasts longer than 30 days. These are not abstract probabilities. Billions of dollars are being bet on them every single hour. The same platforms that correctly forecasted major shifts in previous crises are now flashing warning signals. Europe is already feeling the pain. Natural gas storage is dropping faster than planned. Germany and Italy are quietly preparing contingency plans for rationing. Asia's import-dependent economies are scrambling for alternative suppliers that simply do not exist in sufficient volume. Even the United States is seeing pump prices rise weekly while the strategic petroleum reserve is being discussed again. The most dangerous part is the speed. What started as a limited Israeli operation has now created worldwide supply gaps that cannot be filled quickly. Insurance premiums for tankers have skyrocketed. Shadow fleets are hesitating. Global supply chains for fertilizer, medicine, and consumer goods are under severe pressure. This is no longer someone else's war. It is a global energy crisis that is reaching every household on the planet. Yet the cycle of retaliation shows no sign of stopping. Each new strike on energy infrastructure reduces capacity that cannot be replaced overnight. The coming weeks will decide whether the shortages stabilize or whether we see even bigger price jumps and deeper disruptions spreading further. The world is watching 3 things very closely. Any Russian warship movement toward the Persian Gulf, any confirmed strike that kills Russian personnel, any sudden threat to the Caspian energy routes. Those are the red lines that could turn today's 18% risk into tomorrow's reality. How far away are we from World War III? Closer than most people want to admit, but still far enough that clear heads and back-channel diplomacy could still pull us back. The next 10 to 14 days will likely decide which path the world takes. The probabilities are moving in real time, and the stakes have never been higher.